Here I'm going to set a couple of properties. One is items, and this represents the product or the rows in the current page. So I want to bind this to a field in our component called items. The other property I want to bind is item count. And this is the total number of items that is displayed below the table, and it's also used to calculate the number of pages. So we want to bind this to a separate field, that is item count. Note that here we can't use items.length because items only include the records in the current page, not the total records behind this table. So that's why we have a separate field called item count. Now we should also handle an event called reload. So whenever one of the parameters in this table changes, for example, the page size, the current page, or the sort order, this event is raised. Now we want to bind this to a method called reload items. And we pass this event object. You will see that in a second. So this is how we define this data table in our HTML template. Now we need to add the columns we want to display here. For each column, we should add an element data-table-column. Now here, similarly, we're going to bind a few properties. The first one is property. And this is the property in our JSON object that we should display here. So our products have a title property, and we should set this to title as a string. Note that I put this between single quotes to indicate that this is a string, not a field or property in our component. Okay. Next, we should set the header. Again, I'm going to set this to a string title with a capital T. I want to make this sortable. So sortable. We set this to true. And also I want to make this resizable. So we set it to true. This is the first column. Now I'm going to duplicate this. For our price column, change the property name as well as the header, price. Now for this column, I want to define a template because I want to render this price as currency. So inside this data table column element, we can add an ng-template. We give it a variable that is data table cell. And this name is important because here we're specifically defining a template for the data table cell, not the header. Now, here we use an attribute called let-item. And with this, we can get a reference to the current row or the current product. So we can store that reference in a variable like product, and then we can reference that in our template. So here I want to use interpolation to render product.price, apply the currency pipe with two arguments, USD and true to display a $sign. Now finally, I'm going to define another column for our edit link. So I'm going to duplicate this last column. For this column, the property we are interested in is $key. We don't need a header. Also, this column shouldn't be sortable because all we have here is just edit links. Delete, and we don't need to make it resizable either. Now for the template, I want to render a link. So earlier in our basic bootstrap table, this is how we rendered a link. I'm going to cut this from here and simply put it here inside our ng template. With that, now we no longer need this old table. So this is the new way we represent our table. In the next lecture, we're going to implement the component side and feed this table with data.